So welcome to the August Commission on the Arts meeting. And as always, we start with a public forum. So if anyone in attendance wants to get up and share anything, you're welcome to do that. Invitation to a concert or anything like that? No?
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay.
All
Just so you know, if you ever feel like sharing. And then the next item on the agenda is just approving the June 5th, 2023 minutes, which were emailed to everybody. So hopefully you had a chance to look at them. If they look good, we just need a motion to approve.
I will motion to approve the minutes.
I can second. Oh,
Are we
I
doing
was
this
gonna say,
again?
it's just you two back and forth. Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so the next item on the agenda is approving the annual grant final reports. Actually, final reports as a whole, but we'll start with the 2022-2023 annual grant final reports, which again were emailed in multiple PDFs. So you did have to get through all three of them to review all of them. But I think if we just want to open it up to a discussion about our thoughts or any questions that we had first before we go into approving them. My first thought when reading all of them is that generally it was really exciting to see how donations were better than anticipated for almost everybody,
Oh, yeah.
which I thought was a really good thing. And maybe they were underestimating donations because of COVID kind of recovery, but it was good to see that several of them had significantly more donations than anticipated. So
Yeah. I did have a formality question as I was looking through on the final grant or the annual grants. I don't know if it's a major concern, but I know actors, their actual number
yeah,
totaled up to 110% instead of the 100%.
yeah. So
I didn't know
wrote
if that was a
I
problem
wrote
or
it
not.
down, and I actually think with theirs, it would be good to have them look at their budget numbers and resubmit because they said their actual expenses were about 165,000. Or no, they said they were actually like 192,000. When I did the math, it was actually 165,000,
Yeah.
which is like 40,000 less than their projected expenses. And so I think to me, that's a significant difference.
Yeah.
And that includes, the 20 that they get from us. And so I think it would be good for us to get clarification on what their actual expenses were, because perhaps something just didn't get put into the itemized list.
So their actual expenses were listed as 192.
Yeah, but then what they've listed out is only about 165, 156, 66. And so something is either missing from their expense itemization or they have a $40,000 surplus from their income for the year.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be good to know.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was that or if they were, because I mean, like I said, that's not the only like total that didn't add up right. So I don't know if they were having issues because, like I said, they're how they said here's our projected attendance versus the actual attendance. The demographics of it
Okay. Oh, yes.
totaled
And
up
that
to like
was,
110%.
I did see that too. Yeah.
So that makes me wonder, did they have like just was there a glitch in there? But
Yeah.
we do need to answer $40,000.
Yeah.
That's a glitch.
That's a significant
So
amount.
I can ask for them to review and resubmit their report form.
Okay. I think that'd be good. And the attendance thing, I just took it as they wrote 45% in one column accidentally instead of 35%, but you might
Yeah.
just mention that as well, that the audience number percentage totals didn't add up, but
Right.
that's not the concern, I don't think, as
No.
much. Yeah.
No.
What other thoughts? I have a few more, but
overall, I think the grants were like, I agree with you. Some of them were very nice to see the upward change. So that was, definitely a good change to see.
I think also better than anticipated audience attendance for a
Yes.
lot of people too, which was good.
Yes.
Considering what we had gone through over the last 2-3 years, it was a great season for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does make it feel like people are back into the feel of going out to see different shows or events.
Yeah.
And finally.
Yeah.
And going back to actors, I understand they had some kind of problem with a show and other extemporaneous, events that happen there. Maybe that's part of the discrepancy.
They could be. I know they
Numbers.
said they had to swap out a show,
Yeah,
but still should check their math.
Yeah.
But maybe, yeah, maybe you're right.
Yeah, I think, and so Steve, our other colleague who is not here, did send along some notes. And I agreed with one, especially, well, we're kind of saying generally overall, everything looked really good. The Octagon seemed to be struggling more too.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what our role is in that, but just trying to encourage, especially their grant revenue was
Mhm.
quite a bit lower than projected. And so trying to figure out kind of what's going on there and what could be
there
shifted.
is a problem if you try to do more than you should or you can't afford to
Yeah.
expand too rapidly instead of firming up what you have now.
Yeah.
And then grow slowly.
Yeah.
Make-
And I know they are also doing a capital campaign, which doesn't
Mhm.
seem to be reflected in this. So maybe the grants and donations being down for them is because they're directing it toward that capital campaign.
That could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
So.
just wondering. I mean, obviously, it's an internal thing. I know that they closed off their third floor gallery to using it basically a rental performance
Yeah.
space to turning it into.
Gosh.
Yeah. So I don't know if that maybe hurt them or not. But again, questions. Obviously, it's not affecting us particularly,
Oh.
but
Yeah.
it may affect them in the future.
Yeah. And then one other thing that Steve mentioned about Des Moines Metro Opera was potentially encouraging them to find other sources
Yeah.
of revenue outside of ticket sales, because it's ticket sales and CODA, it seems, and perhaps also because of kind of like the dual community aspect of their organization, they would have other opportunities outside of Ames even to look for additional funding for what they
Right.
do. But yeah.
Well, in that respect, is that bus use the ones that wish to go on the bus, they pay, I don't know, set fee, $10, $15
Mhm.
per trip. And that's all the income they have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is no tickets because there's no
Yeah.
performance, no
Yeah.
show.
Are they since it's the Des Moines Metro, but they're the Ames chapter? Are they getting basically like the Des Moines version of CODA and all that? Is that feeding in? Or are they
I
separate?
don't know.
I
really
don't
know.
think so. I
I-
think, yeah, I think they get some just communication with the Des Moines.
Listen,
Metro.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I'm not involved in that.
I'd hate for it to reach a point where, because I know we can't be their only
Right.
source of income.
Yeah.
And I would hate for them to reach a point where that becomes a problem.
I think a letter to that respect is due.
Because I think even the way it's worded, we can't even be their primary source of income, right? We can't be more than half of their
I believe so, yeah.
expenses. Yeah.
Correct.
So. Okay. Any other thoughts about? Were there anything else from Steve's notes that you saw, Dave?
I think these might have been the specialties, like the town and gown. They had an issue with their deficit
Mhm.
on there, and he was wondering if that was an issue, and I'm blanking on if that was their. I'd have to pull up his email to see if that was the special grant or their annual.
I think he was talking about their annual.
I think he was
Yeah.
too, but yeah, it's like they projected 5,000 deficit and they ended up with 7,000 deficit. So he was wondering if there was an issue with, and I mean, I saw that too, so I was kind of curious, but let me see.
So that's one
Yeah,
thing I
they
think.
had a good year, but they ran a 7,000 deficit. 5 was anticipated. He was curious. His questions are, was there a significant amount of other expenses that they didn't realize? And he was concerned, is this going to be an ongoing,
Yeah.
or is this a one-shot issue they had?
And I think this will come up later too, but I was thinking So the Ames Community Arts Council also had a significant deficit, but then Jenny added a little explanatory note to explain why it was 5,000 plus in the deficit. And so I think that could be an adjustment to the final report form that we add, is that if there is a significant discrepancy, either for the positive or the negative, to offer just a one sentence brief explanation of why that is, right? Because then they could just say, this came up and, this is why this deficit is larger. I mean, I don't think everybody would have to use it, but it would be for those
No.
significant differences.
Yeah, things could change over the years out of anyone's control.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Any other thoughts on the annual grant reports?
No, not
So,
really. The only thing I said is, and this may be way out of my accounting league, but if you know you're gonna have a deficit, it's something you can do to be within budget. I mean, balanced budget. How can you plan to lose money?
but I think some, depending on the organization, right? Some of them rely on their endowments or whatever their investment income to cover that deficit. And so, the budget projection is just their best case scenario, right? Like this is,
Right.
at the time they're doing it, they're saying, this is what we hope to do this year. And so again, like Dave just said, all sorts of things come up, right? And so we know that that's why it doesn't always end up that way. But I think especially the organizations that are have a little bit more financial flexibility can anticipate a small deficit like that, just because they do have investment income or something else that they can supplement,
Yeah.
right?
Doesn't answer my question, but I accept explanation.
Yeah.
well, the other thing might be a gamble. I mean, if they're going to go into a deficit, but they think, wow, this event's going to attract a lot of attention, we'll take the hit here. Hopefully it'll pay off. Again, that's, not necessarily the smartest thing to do, but it may be.
Right. That's
Okay, so we will ask actors to revise and resubmit their final report so that we have a better understanding of their expenses, especially. But outside of that, I guess I'll make a motion to accept all the other annual grant reports that were submitted and emailed to us.
I will move to do so. I really liked what happened this last year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was great.
I second the
Great.
move, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. Okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay, so now we'll move on to the spring 2023 special project grant final reports. And so again, those were emailed in a separate PDF file. Any thoughts or
Yeah.
questions about any of them?
I was honestly really impressed with how well that Hindi went.
Yeah,
And
it-
seeing the pictures was nice because unfortunately I wanted to go, but at last minute I couldn't make it. But
Yeah.
how they did the subtitling
yeah,
looked like it was pretty successful.
and they had a good turnout, a good audience. I thought that was wonderful. I thought all the projects were really great
Yeah,
this
I
spring.
think they said there were maybe only 20 people less than they expected. So
Yeah.
that's really good for like their first big attempt on something. So
Yeah, I agree.
other than that, I think they all looked pretty decent.
They did.
I thought they looked good. All right, so then if we don't have any other comments or questions, we just need a motion to approve and accept them.
I will motion to approve the special grant final reports as are.
I second the motion, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, so all those in favor say aye.
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 And then all those opposed? Okay, so carries. Next thing on the agenda is approving the 2024-25 annual grant application and report forms, which again were emailed to you.
Yeah.
So the note I had said was on the annual grant final report form, just adding that line to explain the difference. And
Oh, the deficit
the
line.
deficit line. I just thought just because it was so helpful that Jenny just did that voluntarily, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, that makes sense. Where had you seen at the Ames Community Arts Council with a $5,000 deficit with such a small budget, you would be pretty concerned about that, right?
Right.
But the explanation took away all of that concern.
Right.
So
Did we want to add it as a completely separate section, or is just like an extra sentence in the overall explanation of the grant?
because I think just a line underneath the actual expenses budget portion, because right at the bottom there it says net to or from reserves, like that's the last item on the budget sheet, and so then maybe it's just a line that just says if needed,
Yeah.
an explanation for if I don't know if the line has a number, and we could just use that same wording that that line has specifically, right? So
Okay.
that way it's clear. An explanation for net to or from reserves. Because I think that some of the questions even that Steve brought up, because we had quite a few because of over more than anticipated donations that had
Right.
quite a few that had positive balances going to the reserve. So it would be good
Yeah.
to just give them that chance to identify what it was that caused that
Right.
for that particular year.
And it would be, I mean, like that, like you said, the donations, we could look at the numbers and clearly see,
Yes.
oh, well, here it is.
Yeah.
But maybe there is something that's specific that they did that caused,
Yeah.
that, even just a few words to say, oh, yeah, we stood out with flyers at Ragbri. Boom.
Yeah.
Something like that.
But I think it's a good communication thing to us from them, but it's also it could be a good reflective activity for them too. Like how did this happen,
Yeah.
right?
I think that'd be simple enough.
Yeah.
Just
I don't know, Brian, what do you think?
So
I
just,
always change the
um,
forms and I'm
Please
sorry.
explain, please explain what caused the net cash to from reserves? Or how do you want to phrase that?
please
That sounds a little bit too like,
explain any large changes, positive, negative, to the net reserves.
large then becomes pretty,
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
quantitative.
yeah.
yeah,
Just
And I
explain the difference in
Yeah, I think what you have is good.
numbers.
Please explain the reason for this.
Or surplus, yeah. What did you read what you wrote again, Brian?
Please explain what caused the net cash to or from reserves.
Right.
that sounds city
Simple.
official speak. Yeah,
Then they can do any explanation they feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aqua,
Yeah, and I just think it'd help preemptively answer some questions, but then also, yeah. So do we need to vote on that? I don't remember.
Are there any other changes to the forms?
I had one other that I thought of. So because when reviewing the annual reports, almost everybody used the budget form incorrectly, where they used the net to or from reserve line to communicate their total. So like the net in both the projections and the actual income and expenses, a lot of them had, they just overlooked the total line and put all of their totals in the line below, which on the expense side then is that net line, right?
Mhm.
And so it was just obviously so I think there's just a visual prompt that a lot of people are missing, obviously. So I think that it would be beneficial for us to visually change how that looks, because
Break between the
so that's what I was going to say is the application budget form, it's the same except that it has an extra break. And it also has a slightly different coloration. So when you look at the one on the application, it seems to be a little bit more obvious that that you have the total line and then the expected kind of net. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So my thought was just to copy and paste the one from the application to the final report. But I think it's just that extra space.
So it's just changing page 2 on the final report.
Yeah. Anything else? So then we would need a motion to make those changes to the final report form.
Yeah, to approve
Okay.
the application and final report forms with those changes,
Okay.
those two changes.
I mean, other than that, I think all the changes matched what we had
Yeah.
talked about before.
Yep, I agree. Yeah.
All right.
Good?
In that last column there
Yeah.
in the budget expenses, the net cash to from reserves, yeah, seem to be different in every other return form. I mean, they were filled in differently.
Yeah, on the final reports that we
Well,
just
yeah,
reviewed?
this last column, that's a line.
Yeah,
That's all. I don't know why they don't, I don't, consistent in the final line.
yeah, and I think, because the one you're looking at there is the application, which I do think is more clear than the final report form. And that's kind of what I was hoping to fix, is that I think it's just a visual cue that's being missed. And so making it look more like the application, I think would make it
Yeah.
just, people would be more cognizant of the spaces that they're using. Yeah.
Okay, well,
But you're right. Like there was a lot of inconsistency in how the information was entered into the form on the final
Mhm.
report. Yeah.
Well, if nothing else, I will make a motion to approve the application forms pending the two alterations that we have stated.
For the 2024-25 annual grant. And
Yes,
I will
sorry,
second.
24,
Yep.
25 grant. Sorry.
And I will second. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I was just trying to remember every word for the second. You took it.
Okay, and then also we need to approve the spring 2024 special project grant application and report forms. Were there any things you noticed on those or changes?
No, again, it looks like it covered what we had spoken about.
Yeah, I agreed.
Oh.
So to me, yeah, I didn't see anything.
Mm.
So again, we would just need a motion to approve and
I move to approve the form as presented for the special project grant for the city of Ames for next year.
I will second that motion.
all right. So then all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay. Easy enough, right? So then upcoming important dates for the Commission on the Arts, the 2024-25 annual grant and spring 2024 special project grant applications will become available August 14th. The next meeting, which will be on September 11th, 2023, which is actually the second Monday of September, because the first Monday being Labor Day means that we'll move that meeting a week. And so our meeting does have to be done by 5:30. We're usually pretty good about that anyway. But the primary component of that meeting will be the annual grant presentation of information for any organizations. And so Brian, I'm assuming we'll take that on and we'll be done by 5:30. But that's also, maybe we should add in here that we did have a resignation from the commission, just so it gets put out there that we do have an open space on Ames Commission on the Arts. And if anyone is interested in applying, they should contact the city manager's office to do that. So any other thoughts?
Not I.
No.
All right, then the meeting is adjourned.
So the next meeting has a tutorial on the